You look at Chicago, how bad it is. You look at Los Angeles, how bad it is. We have other cities that are very bad. New York has a problem. And then you have, of course, Baltimore and Oakland. We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this.
If tomorrow the city you live in announces we're out of money, what would happen first? Streetlights go dark? Buses grind to a halt? Or thousands of folks forced to clear out of shelters because the housing support budget has evaporated? America's major cities, once beacons of progress and promise, are now grappling with brutal budget shortfalls. In Chicago alone, the 2025 deficit has ballooned to nearly $1 billion. In Los Angeles, the city is sounding alarms about thousands of layoffs. And in San Francisco, local nonprofits are scrambling to stay afloat as contracts get slashed.
An organization that received millions of dollars to house and shelter homeless people in San Francisco will be blocked from future city contracts. It's the latest chapter in an investigation our media partner, the San Francisco Standard, has been following.
Even the city budget process, once a technical routine, has become a battlefield over whose needs matter most. And it's not just Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Nationwide, homelessness has skyrocketed to 771,480 people in 2024, an 18% jump from the year before, according to the latest report from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, dropped this fall. These are families, veterans, kids, folks who never imagined sleeping rough, driven to the edge by nonstop inflation, flatlining wages, and city budgets bleeding red. The 2025 audit by Truth in Accounting paints a grim picture. 54 of our largest cities are drowning in debt, shouldering a $621 billion burden, while at least 20 of the top 25 face budget deficits, exceeding $500 million apiece. These aren't abstract numbers. They're the fallout from slashed social services, where tight budgets mean less protection from evictions, thinner safety nets. The municipal budget process that once quietly balanced books is now determining who sleeps inside and who doesn't. What if that knock on the shelter door was yours? How long before the economy's recovery turns into a cruel joke?
$146 million. That is the year-end budget deficit for the city of Chicago. But it is nothing compared to the projected shortfall in 2026.
And right in those cuts, thousands of homeless folks are falling deeper into society's underbelly once more. When cities can no longer afford to maintain shelters, rental assistance, or recovery programs, who will catch those people? It's a bed that can't be opened tonight, a meal that won't be served, a hand that can't reach out to those living on the sidewalks. The math may be cold, but the consequences are human. In this documentary of decline and resilience, we'll dig deep into each city. If we don't reckon with it right now, slowly and soberly, we'll wake up in a country where the American dream isn't deferred. It's dismantled, one empty doorway at a time. This article is written for educational and public awareness purposes. It does not intend to criticize or judge any individual or organization, but rather to inspire empathy and shared responsibility in seeking humane solutions to homelessness in the United States. As 2025 winds down, Chicago is no longer too big to fail. The city may still gleam with its skyscrapers, but behind the glass, reality hits hard. The Chicago budget is barely holding together, clinging to what's left of federal COVID relief, ARPA. This year alone, the city slashed $87 million just to balance the books, leaving only $142 million in ARPA funds to cover the next 2 years. That's the last bit of financial oxygen keeping essential programs like housing aid, rental assistance, and eviction prevention alive. But as that money runs out, unpaid contracts pile up and shelter lines grow longer. HUD's early November point in time count paints a grim picture. In 2025, 18,836 people are homeless in Chicago, a staggering 210% increase from 2023. Most affected are blue-collar families and factory workers who were hit hardest when the economy stalled. These aren't nameless drifters. They're everyday people who once held jobs like shoveling sidewalks or bagging groceries, now living in tents near Union Station, cold and hopeless. The city's pension debt has soared to $42 billion, directly contributing to a $1.2 billion budget deficit for fiscal year 2026. The fallout is real. 25,000 jobs lost since the pandemic, and unemployment sits at 6.8%. As housing prices rise 15% year over year, wages stay stagnant, leaving more people at risk of losing their homes. On Lower Wacker Drive, what once was a concrete floor of sleepers has now shifted to tents near Union Station, where the constant rumble of trains is joined by the sound of coughs from those who've lost everything. Mayor Brandon Johnson calls this crisis a moral and fiscal challenge. But whose morality is being tested? Programs that once helped keep families afloat, rental assistance, anti-eviction aid, the flexible housing pool, are being slashed or delayed because the city can't afford them anymore. Thousands of families who were saved by COVID relief now face eviction again as that money dries up. The real blame? Those in City Hall who let this debt spiral for decades, shifting the burden onto taxpayers and leaving vulnerable communities to suffer. If a city pours billions into corporate districts while ignoring its homeless, then this crisis is more than fiscal. It's a moral failure. How many more brutal winters will Chicago endure before anyone listens to those who have no place left to call home? Los Angeles, that sprawling, sun-scorched giant where palm trees sway like weary sentinels over hidden heartaches, is teetering on the edge of a fiscal chasm deeper than the San Andreas fault line. Fresh off the city controller's October 2025 bulletin, the budget hole yawns at $1.5 billion, creeping up from $1.3 billion last year, with pension debts swelling beyond $22 billion, a relentless tide eroding the foundation. It's no sudden storm, mind you. Labor costs have devoured 18% of the operating kitty since inflation's brutal post-2023 squeeze, while the entertainment sector's collapse, over 15,000 jobs lost, has left the coffers hollow. Worse yet, the homeless crisis in Los Angeles is the noose. Millions rerouted from street repairs to futile sweeps of encampments that bloom anew under the relentless blue sky. And oh, the ache it carves into the soul of this city, making you pause and ponder the quiet cruelties we let fester. The HUD's October 2025 count tallies 75,000 adrift without shelter, a stubborn plateau from 71,000, a haunting portrait of homeless in Los Angeles 2025. These aren't shadows on a spreadsheet. They're the faded smiles of diner cooks from defunct lots, Uber hustlers crushed by rents rocketing 22% in 2 years. Families once scraping by on gig fumes now huddle in the underbelly of Skid Row, where Los Angeles homeless street scenes stretch for blocks. Emergency cuts, trimmed 12% in the austerity knife fight, leave sirens silent too long. The shortfall doesn't just crunch numbers. It starves the fragile threads of outreach, scattering hope like confetti in the wind. How long do we stand by watching hollow-cheeked vets wheel their worldly scraps through the haze before we call this what it is? Not misfortune, but a glaring indictment of priorities gone awry. Homelessness in America, seen here in its starkest form, is no longer a fringe tragedy. It's a moral reckoning. And in the backdrop of Los Angeles homeless drugs and mental health despair, the Homeless in America 2025 story unfolds like a mirror we can't turn away from. Frankly, it's a scandal that scorches the conscience, how the elite clink glasses in Bel Air while the boulevards bleed out, as if State House suits would rather chase phantom bullet trains than forge paths home for the forgotten. The ripple? A festering urban sore. Storm drains clogged with tarp-shrouded despair, respiratory illness surging 25% in the shadows. Yet still, hope lingers. If Los Angeles seizes HUD's 2025 voucher surge, blends it with green jobs and housing reforms, this city could yet claw back from the brink, whispering that true wealth lies not in gold, but in the grace we extend to the least among us. Once a symbol of resistance and social justice, Oakland is now struggling to afford basic humanity. In 2025, the city faces a $129 million deficit, projected to exceed $280 million by 2027 if nothing changes. Over 300 public positions have been cut, including social workers and outreach staff, and nearly 60% of the Oakland homelessness response budget has been suspended. Last year, the city spent $15 million helping 1,200 unhoused residents. This year, it's barely $6 million. When a city must choose between fixing potholes or keeping shelters open, what happens next? You can see the answer beneath I-880 and I-580, where over 5,100 people now live in tents and broken down cars, an Oakland homeless encampment that has grown by 17% in just 2 years. Meanwhile, the average rent has climbed to $2,700 a month, nearly triple the minimum wage. Programs like encampment resolution, which once offered humane relocation, are now stalled. Areas like Wood Street, cleared in 2023, are again overflowing with tents and trash. The city can't afford to hire more social workers or even maintain sanitation services. Residents call it the endless cycle of hope and disappointment. Ironically, while social aid is shrinking, Oakland spends over $19 million a year on policing and camp enforcement, more than its entire emergency housing budget. Officials say it's about safety, but can we really buy safety by abandoning dignity? A system that strips help from the vulnerable to preserve comfort for the stable, is that justice or denial? Adding to the pressure, California's 2025 state budget cuts nearly $1 billion from the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program, drying up city funding. Thousands of rental vouchers may vanish, and shelters like the Civic Center Navigation Hub could close early. Still, Oakland's residents refuse to give up. They hand out meals, gather blankets, and keep hope alive. Yet, goodwill cannot replace a functioning budget. It's a candle flickering in the storm, a symbol of what remains when compassion itself becomes unaffordable. If a city once proud of its justice roots can no longer uphold them, who will? There's something haunting about walking through New Orleans these days, not because of the ghosts the city is famous for, but because of the silence that follows every budget cut. The numbers are cold and merciless. A $160 million deficit. To fill the gap, city officials announced deep reductions across departments, including nearly a 42% cut in funding for homeless services. That's not a rounding error. That's people. That's shelter beds. That's human lives being erased from the city's priorities. You know, it's strange for a city that sings about resilience. This kind of silence feels unbearable. When you stroll near the French Quarter, you still hear jazz spilling from old bars, brass bands marching on cracked sidewalks, tourists laughing under neon lights. But just a few blocks away, under the I-10 overpass, the melody fades into something else. The scraping of shopping carts, the coughing of people trying to sleep through the night, the soft rustle of tents caught in the wind. I spoke with a local outreach worker last month who told me we're running on fumes now. Every week we lose another partner shelter, another team member, another chance to move someone inside. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from fatigue. Because when the funding stops, compassion doesn't vanish immediately, it just starts running on credit. And here's the hard part. The cut wasn't a surprise. The writing had been on the wall for years. Rising costs, shrinking tax revenue, and a post-COVID tourism slowdown made it inevitable. Yet, somehow, the pain still feels like a choice. Why is it that when cities tighten their belts, it's always the poor who can't breathe? Why do we keep calling it fiscal discipline when it mostly means discipline for the desperate? New Orleans homeless shelter, as shelters close their doors earlier, more people end up sleeping near the Riverwalk, a place where, ironically, the city once promised to build affordable housing. Outreach vans drive by less often now. The city's continuum of care team is understaffed and underpaid. Volunteers try to fill the gap, but hope doesn't stretch as far as the deficit does. Still, there's something deeply human about New Orleans. Even as money dries up, you'll find churches serving hot gumbo, neighbors sharing leftover blankets, and musicians offering songs as solace. That's the city's real currency, compassion traded quietly under flickering streetlight. But here's what stays with me. A city that can rebuild after a hurricane shouldn't crumble under a spreadsheet. The storm this time isn't made of wind and rain. It's made of cuts, numbers, and indifference. And maybe the saddest sound in New Orleans today isn't the blues, it's the silence after the funding runs out. There's something heartbreaking about San Francisco today. The city that once defined progress and hope now feels like it's sinking under its own weight. Shiny towers in the San Francisco financial district still catch the sunset, but beneath them, sidewalks tell a different story. One of closed businesses, budget cuts, and tents pressed against the walls of prosperity. San Francisco homeless 2025 numbers continue to rise as the city runs out of money and out of patience. Nearly $185 million has been slashed from public contracts over the last 2 years. Office vacancies have drained property tax revenue, and the city is scrambling to fill the gaps. When that happens, it's the frontline workers and the homeless who pay the price. Nonprofits are losing funding for meals, case management, and shelters, the very programs that keep people from sleeping on the street. One outreach worker told me she's serving twice as many people with half the staff. "We're doing triage, not healing," she said quietly. Meanwhile, federal housing funds have been delayed, forcing shelters to rely on community donations to survive. How did it come to this? A city of billionaires depending on bake sales to feed the San Francisco homeless street population. The truth is, this isn't just a budget problem, it's a moral one. San Francisco spends billions on redevelopment and tech incentives, while neighborhoods like Tenderloin and Soma crumble. The city talks about efficiency and innovation, but people here need shelter, not slogans. And that raises a harder question. When did compassion become optional in one of the richest cities on earth? Walking through Market Street, you can feel the silence, not from the lack of people, but from a society too busy to look down. The city hasn't failed because it ran out of money. It failed because it ran out of empathy. Yet even now, amid all that loss, small acts of kindness remain. A nurse checking on someone under a tarp, a volunteer offering soup. Maybe that's San Francisco's last piece of wealth, the quiet persistence of people who still care. Conclusion, the truth is, America's cities are running out of more than money. They're running out of mercy. When Los Angeles cuts shelter funding, when Chicago delays housing aid, or when San Francisco freezes outreach contracts, what really gets frozen is hope itself. How did the richest nation on earth come to accept tents as part of its skyline? And when did balancing the budget start meaning abandoning the poor? The numbers may belong to accountants, but the pain belongs to the streets. Still, it isn't too late. Compassion, once restored, can be the most powerful currency this nation has left. Because behind every spreadsheet lies a story. A single mother choosing between rent and groceries, a veteran sleeping in his car, a teenager who's learned to hide his backpack under a bridge. These aren't statistics. They're lives unraveling while city halls argue over deficits. Every cut made in the name of fiscal discipline carves deeper into the human fabric of our communities. What good is a balanced budget if it comes at the cost of human dignity? Maybe the question isn't whether cities can afford compassion, but whether they can afford to lose it. The measure of a great nation has never been its skyscrapers or stock market, but how it treats those left out in the cold. America still has the means and the moral duty to rebuild not just its finances, but its humanity.